This meeting is being recorded.
So I could watch the part that I miss when I have to leave, right?
Yeah, so we'll get started. That's so welcome everybody to our traditional book club talk on The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It came out in 2017, and we just started the recording because we started talking about the book before before recording. So Rona, go.
Well, I couldn't believe how everybody I mentioned the book for our book club said, "Oh my God, I heard about it. I read it. I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it." Even my daughter, who reads like a maniac, but she doesn't really go for what I read. She says, "Oh, I heard about that book. I have to read it. I heard about that book." I couldn't get over how popular it is. And it was written in 2017, right?
Right.
Yep.
It's already 2023. Netflix is making a movie of it. Did you know that?
Yes, I know that there's been a movie, or like it's been in development for a little while. Like the rights were sold to one company first, and then and now since they've moved over to Netflix, I looked and online there are a few things. It's like trailer for The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo on Netflix, but it's not exactly. It's their fantasy casting.
And it was a riot because they say Jessica Chastain, and you know the red. I mean, like she is so perfect for. I'm not going to say who. Like it's absolutely perfect. But I think, and you know what? Somebody said they're going to make it into series. Like each husband had their own chapter. Can't you just see that as a perfect 7-week series? Like it's perfect.
Well, it was an interesting way to frame, to like sort of organize the novel, right? So like you said, each husband has their own sort of section, because it sort of while it goes back and forth through time, then like it sort of explores each of those relationships, or like where Evelyn's at in those chapters. And then there's of course the like there's more of an introduction and then a conclusion part, because of course the Seven Husbands, that's not all of Evelyn Hugo's life, and it's not also like we've got our author right in there as well. Like while she oftentimes is sort of off in the background, it's one of those things that like she's also central to the story.
Of course.
Now, my colleague Kathy, who sits behind me and she's here, she's going to end up being disappointed because she's going to get spoilers about the book. She's just reading it now. But yeah, Monique Grant is who we meet when the book opens, who's our journalist author who things aren't going so great in her life, and yet she gets this request through her publication that she works through, or for Vivant. She gets this request that Evelyn Hugo has requested her specifically to interview her, and it seems to come out of nowhere. Now, the story goes along, we find out where it comes from, but she's an important part of the story too. It's not just about the Seven Husbands.
But Evelyn said that she had read something that Monique had written, and that's it. So that sort of like put you off. Like, okay, she read something, like you had no clue why. I thought that was clever.
Oh, I think we all had suspicions even after that, even though she mentions that wasn't the only reason. One article is not likely to make someone decide that an entire biography.
Well, I was naive enough to think that did it. So, you're in the literary world, I'm not.
I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I was going through thoughts of like, what could it be? What could it be? And then I did kind of figure it out before we got there. But
wow, you did. That's amazing. I had no clue.
But I'd like to know what everyone thought of the book. Like, liked, disliked?
Nobody's talking? Well, I loved it. Okay, that's for me. Now everybody next.
I did kind of like it. I didn't get much read because I just got it recently.
Okay.
So I'm here to listen, which I often do when I don't have a chance to read the book, and then I make my decision whether I want to move forward with it.
Okay. Sounds fair.
Toby, it's great. Stick with it.
Yes.
I
Okay.
read it. It's Carol. I read it a while ago and I loved it. And I hope we don't do any spoilers for the end. You have to read it, the whole thing. It's
I was
really
wondering if you liked it, Carol. I'm glad you liked it. I agree with you.
Why weren't you sure?
Because we never know what you're
why I
gonna
wasn't
think.
sure.
You guys, you're right.
I don't know. I was wondering how people would react to it. I really
So,
was.
I have to go soon, but I'm going to keep you on listening because there's a. Pardon?
There's a what?
I don't know who's talking. It's
It
not
was
me.
Carol. It was Carol was saying that she has to go soon, but she's going to keep us on listening because there's a.
Right, and then I somehow got cut off. There's a painting session at the library, so I want to try and do something.
Okay.
So I brought my
Buds. Earbuds.
Okay.
earbuds, AirPods, whatever. How many are we today, Katie?
We're 5. Well, 6
Okay.
including me, but 5. Which
Okay.
is good because
Yeah, that's good.
attendance hasn't been great, and that leads towards the possibility of dissolution. But we'll leave that aside for right now.
Okay.
Addie, you were going to say something about the book, but we didn't hear because we all started talking at once a little bit.
No, I really didn't have any great opinion about it. It's just readable, but I don't find it outstanding at all.
See, it's interesting because you listened to it, and Kathy, my colleague, is also listening to it, and she's early into it, like just a few chapters. But I said this is one of my things with audiobooks sometimes is that the inflections that people may use or like the way that something is said aloud it affects the way that we perceive the book. And I haven't listened to it, so I'm not sure. But like Rona, I really enjoyed it. I read it in just over a day, and that's with other stuff going on in my I work full time and
Wow.
I have the kids and I have other sort of obligations. But I just it was a super super fast read to me. I found it was like watching just a really fun movie. It had good character development, the story ticked along, I was engaged the whole time. But having said that, I also recently had the experience with one of the Elizabeth Strout books that I talked about last time that I was really, really busy. So while I was reading it, I also had it on audio so that I could listen to the book while I was doing other things. And then I would go back to reading it when I could read it. And I hated the audiobook. I hated it, but I loved the book.
Ah.
So it's sometimes it's like the audio rendition is still a rendition, right? There's an interpretation there. The same way that when we read the books, we read them with different, like Rona and I probably read them differently, right? Like the inflections that the characters are giving, Toby and I read different, like because it's all taking place in our heads. We have different perceptions of who these characters are. When someone's narrating it like verbally, then their impressions of how these people would sound, the ways that they would say something, the pauses that they would take, those are already laid out for us, right? It's kind of the same as if you go see a play. Like if you see A Midsummer Night's Dream, right? Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, you can go to 5 different performances by 5 different companies and have 5 completely different interpretations of the work. You could go to 2 different performances by the same company and still end up with different interpretations of the work because it could be, again, either there's an understudy in one of the roles or there's just like one of the actors is reciting slightly differently, and you get these different colorations of interpretation.
Interesting.
So I wonder, Addie, I'm not sure because it's like it is a lighter read, but it's still, I found like it had depth to it. I had Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read did any of you read the Daisy Jones and the Six?
No.
So that was her first kind of big book, and it's set mostly in like the 60s, 70s, rock and roll kind of stuff. And I also found it, like I found this book, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, to kind of give me the same feeling afterwards, where I felt immersed in the story, very readable, enjoyable the whole way through. Again, some depth to character development, but also really fun. And I didn't get too caught up in how realistic necessarily, like we suspend our disbelief, of course. But I had read one other book of hers, an earlier book of hers after I read Daisy Jones and the Six, and I didn't really enjoy it. So I enjoyed this one, and now I'm thinking about trying Carrie Soto is Back. That's a recent one of hers. That's the most recent one of hers that also got a lot of play.
I think Daisy Jones and the Six is on a streaming thing.
Yeah, Daisy Jones and the Six was turned into, I think, I thought that it was supposed to be turned into a movie, but I think it got turned into sort of a mini series. And
yeah. With Elvis Presley's granddaughter, I believe.
Yeah, Riley Keough.
Riley Keough.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And this is it. It's just like they are like both Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I do find quite cinematic. Like I'm not surprised at all that they're made into movies, because it, like, you really see it happening, right? As you're reading it.
Okay, I'm going to read it. Because I read the introduction and I read the end. That's what I did.
Okay.
So that I got a little flavor. I just
what I
have the
found?
time.
I found, Katie, that I actually saw the room where Evelyn Hugo was talking from. Like I found like the room was so real. I don't know if she explained the wooded paneling and the books or whatever. And every time she was talking from that room, I actually saw the room. It was unbelievable. Is that something that was done purposely? Is this the kind of writer she is, that she's so, everything is so perfectly worded and like you actually visualize what she's writing?
Well, this is part of what I meant, is that it's very cinematic. Like,
right.
And it's interesting too, because I wonder if we all pictured the same room.
Yeah, that's so interesting what you say. I have a perfect example of that room. I don't know.
Yeah.
That I found like that.
Not real.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I just want, what did anybody else think? Did you feel that way? Like when they walked and when she kept walking into the room, Monique, to listen to Evelyn, I saw the room. Like, it's unbelievable. I saw her chair. I saw everything, what she looked like, what she was wearing. I just found that everything was so visual, like you don't always get in a book,
No, not at all. Yeah, this is I think that she did a really good job of describing the environments. I think that that's part of this idea of like why it was so immersive, is because like you just sort of like, especially the beginning, it starts sort of in this general time, right? So we don't have to like put our, like we walk, it's like walking through a door when we started reading the book, which is sort of like, this is an easy place to move to. We've all read a ton of books set in New York and Brooklyn and everything, so we can like go with Monique to her, like follow her from her workplace to her little apartment to her sort of in between area. And we all have ideas of what Manhattan's like if we haven't been there. So then moving the sort of movement from Monique's reality of her everyday into Evelyn's reality of her everyday, and the big tall building and the very, like accommodating door person, and like the opulence, but this understated kind of opulence, if that even makes sense. And then that segued really nicely, I thought, into first Evelyn's personality. I really liked Evelyn's personality. This is the
was
way
the
that
smart
she
woman.
is, and that she was completely unapologetic.
Mhm.
Even though she says that she might do some things differently, but she doesn't regret any of the things that she's done. And that to say that she's like, I'm not a good person. And it's just like, but this is my life. And to tell it so frankly.
She used people. She wasn't a good person really at all. She just used people for her own,
Hmm.
like so, like but yet you still liked her. She
Oh,
was
for
still
sure.
likable, and that's amazing. Like
But on top of which, too, it's like she wasn't dishonest about it either.
right,
Like
maybe that's
with the
why.
people that she used, either she was completely upfront about it with them, or else it was people who thought that they were taking advantage of her. And then
Mhm.
it's just like it's just kind of part of the game, which I thought was I really appreciated that perspective, that because it seems like, and again, all of our memories are fallible, of course. And so with this idea, if she had been a real living person and was telling the story of her life, that's of course one perspective of how it happened. I'm sure we've talked about this before, like that if you remember an event with a friend of yours who experienced the same event, you may remember it differently. It's like, oh no,
Mhm.
no one said that, or that hadn't happened. And it's like, that's just sort of the way of things. Now, she says, Evelyn Hugo says at one point in the telling, she also says, like, everyone else is dead now. So there's no one to gainsay me, but also then no one else will be hurt by my telling of the story.
It's true. And nobody will tell it differently. It's my version, I mean, it has to
Exactly.
be my version because there's nobody to dispute it.
Yeah. And from her perspective as well, she was very frank and honest, like from the beginning, like even in the actions, from the first husband that she has is Ernie Diaz, and
Mhm.
that section is called Poor Ernie Diaz. So with Ernie Diaz, she goes to, like, she seeks him out because she knows that he's going to be moving to Hollywood with as an electrician, right? And
Mhm.
so she makes a decision and stays the path for that. And she does use Ernie Diaz for sure.
Mhm.
That's maybe the one that it's like, oh, that wasn't entirely honest or anything. But at the same time, like when she finishes, she's like, but it all ended up okay, like he ended up married with lots of kids and and he
Mhm.
got what he wanted. I got what I wanted. And a lot of the times too, like,
Justified her using him.
yeah, and I also really liked how honest she was. I want to keep saying frank because I feel like it is the perfect word for it, but how honest she was about using her body and her looks as currency, recognizing them as um like as something to use as opposed to as something that can just be used by other people.
Mhm.
Because this is something I feel like that comes up a lot in, well, still in our culture, right? Is this idea of like oftentimes women are demonized, especially young, beautiful women. They're demonized as gold diggers or as, like, well, usually gold diggers. But I've always been very interested in the transactional nature of that. It's like, why is this woman being, looked down upon for being a gold digger when the person who, like the older wealthy man, is the one who's using her for her youth and beauty? Like there is, sports stars have they get a lot of money for a small period of time because they know that their lifespan sort of is brief. So then when something happens, like, there's a divorce or something, and people say, well, she shouldn't get anything because she didn't do anything. It's like, well, he didn't, like
Yeah,
that was part
exactly.
of the transactional nature of their relationship.
Could I say something what I really liked?
Mm,
I liked that she portrayed Hollywood because there are many times when I see marriages of celebrities and I say, that's fake. They were told to get married. They're not really in love with each other.
Mm.
The best example is Jennifer Aniston with this guy. I forget his name. The one after Brad Pitt.
Oh, Justin
Thorough,
Theroux.
somebody
That's
thorough.
Right. She made him
Justin Theroux.
famous. I never heard of him before.
Yeah.
And then another one. So there were just a few, and I'll never forget when I think Jennifer Lopez was told, or one of them, to cut ties with Kanye. No, the other guy. The other, maybe it was Kanye.
A baseball player.
Yeah, they say there were a few. There's a few.
Rodriguez.
There's a few examples. So I like that part. I like the way she talked about the Hollywood matchups, and that Hollywood told her,
Well,
Carol, how about Rock Hudson in the 50s when he was told to marry a woman? Remember that?
Yes.
Mm.
no, but I don't remember, but I do remember he did not marry. Am I correct?
He married a woman.
He married
because
somebody.
Okay, so like
He
she
married-
said, so like Evelyn said, one of the husbands, it was just platonic. They did nothing together.
Hmm.
but they also
Oh.
agreed to it, right? I think that was Clever Rex North. That was her co-star in Anna Karenina,
Hmm.
right? That they were just like they both kind of came into it again, eyes open, and agreed this is going to be good publicity for
Right,
the
right,
movie. We
right.
need the publicity because it's a 3-hour long movie. We need people to
Exactly.
actually go see it. And also we agree that everything is like I thought that was actually quite a healthy relationship. They're
Yeah,
married.
yeah. Anyway, I have to say again, I really enjoyed the book.
Mhm.
And I don't want to do any spoiler alerts, so we'll wait for Kobe to finish it.
No, it doesn't bother me. I forget what I hear anyway.
On
So.
top of which, Toby already said she read the ending. She read the
Oh, you
beginning and she
did?
read the ending.
Oh,
She hasn't read
Toby.
the middle.
All right, that's what I do sometimes, so okay? But
Well,
it
I
says,
had to know something coming into this today.
okay.
But I
So it was
didn't
a
have time
shocker.
to read it. So
Yeah. So it was a shock with her assistant. I was shocked with that.
It was a shock with her assistant.
Well,
What?
didn't she, weren't they lesbians?
yeah.
Not her assistant, her one of her co-stars, Celia
Friend,
St.
her
James.
friend.
So while the book is called spoiler, everybody, everyone,
Right.
spoiler.
Right.
Stop watching now if you don't want the spoiler.
Right.
So while the book is called The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and it's set up that way, the one overarching relationship throughout is her romance with Celia St. James, who's her co-star in Little Women, which is one of her
Mhm.
first movies that she does. So yeah, I think I read that this book had been, or like the story was inspired a little bit by stars of that
Elizabeth
age, right? Like, so like Elizabeth
Right.
Taylor, which I think we
Yeah.
all
Right.
kind of could definitely get
Yeah.
flavors of Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Rita Hayworth came into it a little bit, which I was thinking Rita Hayworth with the dyed hair, because Rita Hayworth was so funny or famous for being this
Flaming
redhead,
red hair.
right? And of course, she wasn't a natural redhead. And like the changing of the names, the sublimation of like your identity of whoever you were before to become the movie star. And who else? Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner had come out with so towards the end of her life, there was a book published. It was something Conversations with Ava Gardner, and it was very, very candid. And that was another sort of inspiration for the storyline of The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. But no, it was her co-star, Celia St. James, who she had this long-running relationship with.
She called her wife.
Yeah.
The last line.
Because
I-
they have, well, again, a little bit of a spoiler. They don't get married, obviously, in an official capacity because it was not possible. But they had a little ceremony, the two of them
Mhm.
together, and that was enough for both of them.
And that's in this in the book.
Yeah.
It was the book. Okay.
I'm not there yet.
You'll get there, Toby. Addie, you didn't finish it?
No, I'm right in the middle of it.
Oh, I'm sorry then for all the spoilers for you too.
Yeah,
But
but
at
I like
least
the
you
way
already know. You already
Yeah.
know about Celia.
Yeah. But I just wonder how you people can take out from the book your interpretation of the book. It's beyond me. I find it very light and airy
Hmm.
storytelling, but you guys get more out of it than I do.
It's you know, I don't know. I don't know why that might be. Looking for it, searching for it, searching for meaning and everything.
Yeah, probably.
Rock
You know
Hudson
what stuck
married
out?
his manager's secretary, Phyllis Gates.
Mm.
Wow.
Oh, right. Yeah, because he was gay. Rock Hudson you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they were going to come out with.
Yeah, because he was gay, and in those days you weren't allowed to say. So they figured if he married a woman, people would not realize he was gay. That was the whole
Yeah.
thing, I think, in the 50s and 60s.
That was
Well,
Yeah.
and there was also, who was that co-star of Elizabeth Taylor's? He was so beautiful. He was
Montgomery Clift.
Montgomery Clift. So
Yes,
I
yes,
remember
yes.
reading a biography on Elizabeth Taylor years and years and years ago, so my facts need to be checked. But I remember one of the things that they also did is that she and he would go out, would be seen out often together. She knew that he was gay. And
Yeah.
it was just, again, it was part of the visual presentation.
Yeah.
Well, look what
So
she did in
that-
memory of Rock Hudson afterwards with the AIDS, how she started that whole.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
But you know what bothered me, Katie? The
Mm.
fact that her only daughter, Connor was the name, died. That sort of like, I didn't know where that fit in. Like, why did that have to, that sort of like just hit me out of the blue. Did that have to happen in the book? Was there a reason she did that?
Well, I think Connor kind of had to be out of the picture for the full story again to be told. And I think like Connor is a really minor character by and large
Yes.
in it, and she does kind of feel like an afterthought, I thought. Um, I liked that Connor is hers and Harry's daughter. I liked that
Mhm.
they had a child together because Harry was just so marvelous in
Yeah, he
so many
was. And
ways.
they had a wonderful relationship. You know, they
They
loved
had a
each other.
wonderful relationship, a wonderful
Yeah.
partnership on so many different
Yeah.
levels. Um, but I think that so Connor kind of exists as a vehicle, one to show what Evelyn is like as a mother,
Mhm.
one to show also her, because like without her being a mother, then she can't then have her racy French movie with what's his name, Max Gerard, right? It's like it. Connor is like a year or two old, I think, and that's when she stars in this racy French movie
Right.
where she is
Exactly.
not being perceived as a mother. And this is like it's an interesting thing to put in just well from a
Mhm.
feminist point of view, right? Is these ideas, these little boxes that not only does society, of course, put women in, but that we put ourselves in oftentimes.
Mhm.
Say, like, oh, well, I can't do this because, like, that's her answer to it at first, but I'm somebody's mother. And it's like, yeah,
Mm.
but that's not all you are. So she serves as a highlight for that. She also, like, her teenage years are very challenging, right? And it's Evelyn struggling with that, especially compared with because Evelyn didn't have a mother to
Mhm.
reflect on, because her mother died when she was very young, that then this allows for, again, a sort of idea of like how to find your way in a world, like, again, in non-Hollywood, like in the real life areas. And then that the relationship between her and Connor is sort of recovered, that they work things out, that like it's sort of it feels afterthoughty, a lot of Connor, the descriptions of Connor, but at the same time it's very I think partly because it's very tidy. It's like, yeah, she had this really these challenging teen years. That's kind of a stereotype. And then
Yeah.
everything worked out. But then unfortunately, she did die of breast cancer.
Yeah.
This is too bad. But then this gives also the reason why Evelyn would be auctioning off these gowns, right? Which is the
Yeah.
impetus for this idea behind being interviewed by Vivant. So we need Connor to keep everything else kind of in motion, but I would entirely agree that her story is not very developed.
That's it. That's what it was like stilted, and it's
Yeah.
this and that, and then she dies. It was like it didn't go with the flow of the book. Is what it like stuck out like from left field. It was if the editors read the first draft and said, "I think you should have put it in that Evelyn had a, I don't know. It seemed to almost be an afterthought in the book. I don't know.
I feel like maybe what was missing with her was just like, again, like we're told that there's this depth of feeling that Evelyn has for her, right? That her becoming a mother, that she really wanted to become a mother, like she ended up deciding that she really wanted to become a mother and whatever, whatever. But at the same time, that's never, you don't feel it. You feel all the other
It wasn't
relationships.
real. That's what it was. It wasn't real. It
It's
was
that,
contrived.
yeah. And that's something that I often find too with a lot of different novels, movies, etc., is where the family element ends up being completely cut out. Like it's kind of like almost entirely unimportant. And not that it has to be a be all and end all, but I think that while for some people, of course, their families are completely cut out, I think that our family ties end up meaning a lot. Whether or not it's sort of in an everyday, if it's in the formative ways of like development, if it's like, even if it's, something that happened in childhood, whatever, like so many of our relationships, it's hard to focus on just one area of like a relationship. And I find that a lot of the stories that we're told, whether it's visually or, the like filmically or novelistically or whatever, often sort of push those things off to the side. And I mean, to be fair, it would be a lot more pages, I guess.
No, that's exactly
Trying
it
to-
That's
too.
such a wonderful relationship with Connor's father. Why did they divorce?
Well, you want us to tell you?
I don't mind.
Harry, the father, he's gay. So they're together, like they're best friends right near the beginning of the book. Like you'll meet him very early on. But she is her 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth husband. And they decide to get married for reasons that I will leave I'll leave under the table for right now. Because it is sort of big part of the storyline. And they do stay married for quite some time.
Uh-huh. All right, I'm going to have to go now. I thank you for that. I say bye to everybody and see you next time.
Bye, Toby. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go too.
You're gonna go too, Addie?
Yeah, I have a Cummings exercise.
Okay, and we just ruined parts of the book for you too. Or maybe maybe we didn't ruin it. Maybe you're just going to keep reading it and see what
I'll continue. I'll continue and see what I could find the way your other ladies do.
Okay. Nice to talk to you, Addie.
You too, Katie.
So I'm going to stop the recording here.